How many of you like to plan things? Now, I know in real estate, you've got the realtors that just, hey, they get up every day, jump out of bed and go. They don't really have a plan for the day. I know some others, they sit there at their desk and they're always planning. Guess what? You kind of got to find something in the middle. If you sit there and plan everything all day, it might be taking too long. General Patton said something that an aggressive plan that's 80% done, executed today, is far better than a perfect plan executed next week. You know, some agents, they sit there and they plan nonstop. Here's what they're going to do. Here's what their plan is. Here's what they're going to do next month. Here's what their next marketing is going to be. They're always planning. Well, if they're always planning, guess what they're not doing? They're not meeting with clients. They're not selling houses. And then you got the other side. The other side jumps up in the morning, starts answering their calls, starts answering all their texts. They're what I call a pop-top realtor. They're always popping to wherever the client says something. They're jumping around everywhere. They don't really have a plan. They just do whatever happens. They're often successful, but only successful so far. They're always worn down, and sometimes those are the ones, they just get burnt out and leave the business before they really should. They never get past a certain point. The other ones that plan nonstop all the time, they never get to the point of being successful, and the next thing you know, they're gone. So, let's talk about planning. I am a planner. I believe in planning. My wife will tell you, when we've got a trip coming up, she has no idea anything. All the rooms have been booked, all the hotels been booked, all the airlines have been booked. Guess what? She doesn't plan a thing for that. But you know what? That's okay, because you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan to do things. She makes me plan a little bit less. Makes life a little fun sometimes, because guess what? I wouldn't do some of the things we do because I didn't plan for it, but she makes us do them. Now, when it comes down to real estate, you used to have another saying, everything's great with the plan until you get punched in the face. Mike Tyson said that one. You know what happens? What that means is, it's great to have a plan, but you gotta know what you're doing when the plan goes wrong. Plans go wrong all the time. I came up through the military. It never worked the way it was supposed to. We always had contingency plans. We had plans when we were jumping. What do you do if the air traffic gets busy in that area? What do you do if the weather changes? What do you do if the clouds come in? What happens if the wind's blowing one way at altitude and another way on the ground? You gotta have a plan for what you're gonna do. What happens? I've had this happen a couple of times when the aircraft has a malfunction and the jumpers are on the plane with the door open already. Guess what? We're going out, because the only time people get hurt in airplane crashes is when the plane hits the ground. I'm not going to be on it when the plane hits the ground. But when you go to real estate, you've got to have that plan. I take time every year to business plan. I take a couple of days off. I go isolate myself in the room. I put the plan together, and then I go execute. I don't plan constantly throughout the year. If you plan constantly throughout the year, I think it's hard to do. And I also don't plan for 20 years from now, because you know what? There's no telling what the world's going to look like, what's going to be important, what new technology is going to be available that changes our life 20 years from now. I was just sitting there last night, maybe the night before, my wife and I were watching something on TV late at night, and we were talking about how things have changed. I know what we were watching. We were watching 1923, one of those Yellowstone series, and we were sitting there talking about it, and her grandmother, who lives up in Virginia Beach, is 100 years old, and I'm like, hey, she was born when this show came on. And I thought, as I look at them riding around on horses, and cars had just become popular, and they were just getting electricity, I think, 100 years ago, we didn't really have a lot of cars. We didn't have a lot of electricity. What has changed in that 100 years with computers and technology and all the things we do in real estate? When I started in real estate, we didn't have GPS. We didn't have cell phones. We had some big car phones that cost $3 a minute to talk on. We didn't really have computers that were portable and took them around. We didn't have fax machines the first year I started. I can remember the first fax machine I got in my office. We had to think, who's got a fax machine I can fax to? Because I needed somebody else to have one. Or when we first got computerized MLS and we printed it out on thermal paper, we put it in the back seat of the car while you're at lunch. You'd come out and the heat would have turned all your MLS printouts black. You know, things change. So planning is good, but I like to plan for 1 year and 5 years. I don't plan too much longer than that because so much changes. But every year I update my 1-year plan, I update my marketing plan for that year, and then I update my 5-year plan. Where do I really think we can be in 5 years? I always remember the quote, the days are long, but years are short. What we tend to do is overestimate what we can get done in a day or a week and underestimate what we can get done in a year or 5 years. You see, it's so important to have that plan, but even more important is to execute on the plan. I find that constantly with agents. They'll say, here's what I'm gonna do. And I'm like, great. I meet with agents every month. My agents, they have a coaching session with me every month for a half hour. Every one of them sits in front of me, and the first question I always ask is, what did you accomplish on your plan from the last 30 days? And then, what are we gonna do for the next 30 days? And I write those down because guess what my questions are gonna be every single month? What did you accomplish on the plan for the last 30 days? And what are we gonna do for the next? And over, they've got great plans, but did they execute? The great ones always execute. That's why we share. Betsy and I constantly sharing what we do in our business, and everybody's like, why do you always share everything? Aren't you afraid people are going to copy you? No, I'm not afraid people are going to copy me. They don't want to do what we do, and therefore they'll never get what we have. I tell people that all the time. They just don't execute the plan. So we graciously tell everybody everything we're doing. We want agents to be better on the other sides of the deal. We want agents to provide better service, to create a better environment and create a better impression of real estate agents in the marketplace. We want them to be better. The one thing we hold back, we don't tell them what we're getting ready to do. So it's important to have that plan. It's important to execute on the plan. So if you don't have one, that's the first step. Go out there today, put together your plan. Thanks.